Hi, welcome back. We're going to be on to our next topic, which is going to be, as requested, it's going to be regarding plumbing. And to start off our plumbing discussions, we're going to start with something that we would rather quite frequently see when it comes to our own households, and we're going to keep it to a topic that's going to be relative to agricultural usage and more frequently meant for residential usages. And I think the perfect topic for today would be any kind of plumbing having to do with PVC or your plastic plumbing, for lack of a better word. When it comes to our plastic plumbings, these are going to be pipes or any kind of piping fittings that are going to be of synthetic types. And we're going to quite often use our PVC or CPVC. Our differences between our PVC or polyvinyl chloride to our chlorinated polyvinyl chloride, also known as CPVC, is the fact that CPVC can handle a higher amount of heat, up to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas PVC can only withstand a temperature around that 73 degree Fahrenheit range. So oftentimes you're going to see those having to deal with plumbing, installing plumbing. Your guys are going to be installing plumbing. If they're going to be installing large amounts of plumbing, of course, they may just use straight CPVC throughout the entire household. So that way we're not having to bounce back and forth between, okay, PVC goes here, CPVC goes here. They may just go ahead and just put in CPVC throughout the entire household. A little bit more expensive, yes. But when it comes to our synthetic types of plumbing, it's going to be our cheapest route in order to go when it comes to installing any kind of plumbing within a residence. But when it comes to any kind of plumbing, that's going to be the advantage, is that our synthetic type is going to be the cheapest. When it comes to the material, it's so inexpensive compared to steel or copper. It's easy to install. When it comes to our material, there's not as much tools and or any other additional equipment in order to put together your synthetic plumbing. When it comes to tools, pretty much everything that you're going to be using, I have right in front of me right here. From our primer to our cement, two different types here, from our medium body to our heavy body. The medium body I'm most likely going to be using when it comes to residence. But when it comes to agricultural use, a higher amount of pressure and flow, I'm going to be using a heavy body. I wouldn't be using any kind of a lower grade, a medium body when it comes to agricultural use. Unless I'm looking to create Old Faithful out in my field and have a bunch of water come pouring out from a pipe, then yes, I would go reaching for this. But if I want everything to hold together and stay true, heavy body is going to be the way to go. But when it comes to my tools in order to put together my synthetic type, primer, cement, and of course my PVC pipe cutters. Those of you that have never seen these before, kind of like a scissor with the ratchet installed. In order to open it up, I'm pulling my arms apart here, and from there just keep working the hands until I go about cutting my pipe with a pair of scissors. There are other types of cutters available. Some that are exactly like scissors, to where it's just an exact cut. These are a lot easier to use when it comes to cutting PVC, because it's a gradual cut. Whereas with the scissors, where it's just a immediate cut through, is not as gentle when it comes to the PVC, and can tend to chip or crack the PVC. The PVC pipe cutters with the ratchet fitting tend to gradually cut through, and it's a lot easier on the pipe. And of course, there are other PVC cutters available. Some wire type where it kind of works around like a saw. You just work back and forth with this wire as it cuts through your PVC piping, as well as your generic saws to cut through PVC pipe. But in my line of work, I like using this ratchet type fitting. Granted, I am very limited to the amount of width that I would use on our PVC pipe. I can only use so big a pipe in order to use our ratchet-like tool. But when it comes to a larger, wider PVC pipe, of course, I may be reaching for a saw, heck, even a reciprocal saw in order to cut through any kind of PVC that's going to be real wide. Other types of classes when it comes to our synthetic piping would be ABS. Also, if you're really curious, what does ABS stands for? Because PVC standing for polyvinyl chloride, and CPVC stand for chlorinated polyvinyl chloride. What does ABS stand for? Students ask, and here's your answer: acrylonitrile. It's a mouthful. Acrylonitrile butadiene styrene. Just a fancy way of saying it's a synthetic plastic pipe meant for low flow, your sewage. Okay, yes, this is the type of plumbing that you're going to be installing on something like your toilets. These are a wider mouth of pipe. They are a heavy wall, but it's able to withstand your sewage. So that advantage, comparing to any other type of pipe, when would I be using? As opposed to ABS, what other type of pipe would I be using? Something like a cast iron piping would be used for something as opposed to ABS. So of course, ABS is going to be so much lighter as opposed to the cast iron pipe. So for those that are going to be installing any kind of plumbing where they're going to be having to put piping for their sewage, they may want to reach for ABS, because ABS is so much lighter, so much cheaper. Also, that additional bonus is the fact that while ABS is so light and so cheap, it's been known to last over 50 years. It's got a long lifespan. So, of course, who wouldn't want to go about having synthetic piping when it comes to their households? Now, are there any other uses? I keep talking about this plastic synthetic pipe being used for water, for your water usage. Are there any other purposes for something like PVC? PVC has been known to be used for something like our air components, your air compressor. So cheap, easy to install, and also can withstand the pressures that you would be using for like your galvanized pipe when it comes to air in a shop hooked up to your air compressor. Now, there is a downside to using PVC when it comes to your air compressor, and that's the fact that PVC can have a tendency to build up condensation when it comes to your air when it comes to the shop. So if I were to be, if it were me installing an air compressor and plumbing when it comes to any kind of compressed air, I may just go for galvanized piping. But I have seen PVC in a shop when it comes to an air compressor. Colors, just so that way we know how to identify these different types of synthetic pipes. PVC tends to be white in color, whereas CPVC tends to be tan or gray. Our ABS comes in black. And all, of course, our different types of piping has labels across, and allowing you to be able to additionally identify, is it PVC, is it CPVC, or is it ABS? So as far as color, white for PVC, gray for CPVC, and black for ABS. Additional information that you would want to know regarding our pipes when it comes to synthetics is the wall thicknesses. How are they determining the wall thicknesses for this different pipe? That's determined by schedule. Schedule 20, Schedule 40, Schedule 80, and so on. Well, our different schedules for our plumbing, our wall thicknesses, 40, that's going to be 40 and 80 are going to be our most standard type, commonly used pipes when it comes to any kind of residential as well as commercial. Schedule 40, you're most commonly going to see that at your Home Depot or Lowe's when it comes to residential usages, and perhaps your light commercial grade type piping. Schedule 80, you're going to see that as your standard commercial installations. But as far as your different types of scheduling, additional information that you'll need to know is what is meant by nominal and what are meant by actual sizes. I think a good analogy would have to be when you're having to buy different types of lumber. Your 2x4. 2x4 is what you're going to see is like your nominal size. Okay, you're always going to, it's just the easiest way of identifying that size of pipe. So like this pipe here, 1/2 inch. Okay, whereas if I were to take a tape measure and go about measuring my width of this pipe, it's not going to be an actual 1/2 inch. Whereas when I go to buy my lumber, a 2x4 is not actually going to be a 2x4. It's going to be 1.5 by 3.5. Well, that's a heck of a lot to write out on a label or have to identify like, oh, I need that 1.5 by 3.5 lumber. It's a lot easier to say 2x4. Okay, so nominal being the name of this width, whereas the actual size is going to be, as far as piping goes, a little bit wider than the actual, a little bit wider as far as the actual size to the nominal size that's going to be identifying. Now, granted, my larger schedules, a Schedule 40 to a Schedule 80 is going to be a little bit thinner as far as its size. So a Schedule 80, if it's going to be, I need a 1/2 inch pipe, of Schedule 80, it's going to be wider than that 1/2 inch that you're going to actually need. Okay, so as far as my demonstrations goes, I keep talking PVC plumbing. So where do you go about, what's the how-to as far as putting it together? Well, as far as synthetic piping, where I'm demonstrating on PVC today, it's going to be very straightforward. Okay, I'm going to be dealing, I've already got my PVC piping cut. I'm going to be dealing with just a straight primer and cement. We're going to stick to just a residential usage, medium body PVC cement. And also one other thing I need to mention to you before you start going about putting any kind of practice together is that when it comes to your cement, of course, you're also going to have different types of cement meant for your type of pipe that you're going to be putting together. To put it straightforward with you, your PVC pipe cement, not going to be the ideal cement meant for something like your ABS. You have ABS cement meant for ABS plumbing. Good reason why you would not want to be putting your PVC cement as far as your ABS. It's going to be for the different types of pressures, the different type of chemicals. You're talking about chemistry here when you're putting together this different type of pipe. Okay, the same reason why I wouldn't want to use a medium body for an agricultural usage. I want to use a heavy body. This heavy body can be able to withstand any kind of pressure up to 160 psi, whereas this medium body is going to be a lower grade. So use the appropriate type of cement, cement meant for synthetic, for that appropriate type of pipe. So PVC cement meant for that PVC, ABS cement meant for that ABS. Pretty straightforward. Now, a few things, a few how-tos when you go about putting together your PVC. And something I mentioned to the students is that when you first put together your primer, your cement, when you're applying these different fluids, there's an appropriate order to go about putting them all together. To be very straightforward with you, when it comes to this different type of application, I wouldn't be putting my primer and cement on the pipe first. Here's why. You put the primer, you put the cement, all right, it's on my pipe. Now, to put it on my fitting, I only got 2 hands. What else am I going to do with this pipe here? Set it right down on the table. Now, where's that primer and cement? It's now on the table, okay? To have it more logical order of putting together your primer and cement, put it on the fitting first, okay? You're going to be putting on the inside of the fitting. In this case here, I got a little coupler. A little slip coupler. Another thing I gotta point out to you is this: when you go to buy your fittings are going to be identified by either S or a T. S for slip, meaning that it's smooth on the inside, so that way you can be able to slip in the PVC, slip out. A T standing for thread. You're screwing together these different fittings, okay? So when you go about buying your fittings over at Home Depot, True Value, Lowe's, you name it, get the right type of fitting, all right? Be sure if you need a slip, make sure it's a slip. Don't get a TT or a ST. You'd hate to get the wrong type of fitting, okay? Buy the right type, all right? So in this case here, I got a SS coupler, SS PVC coupler, okay? So another thing students pointed out to me before in a question is that, could I be able to put together PVC with only primer? Then answer, yes. Here's why, okay? Now this type of method here is known as solvent welding, all right? Yeah, for those of you metal shop gurus out there, here you are actually doing a type of welding here. Why? Because primer actually heats up the surface of your PVC in order for that to really hold the cement. So if I were to take primer and put it to the inside of my coupler here, as well as my PVC piping, you can't see it. You can't see it happening, but you're actually causing a mild amount of heat, enough to be able to lightly melt your PVC in order for that cement to really grab hold and stick coupler to PVC. Would this be ideal? I would never recommend only using primer. But to answer a question, honestly, yes, a primer can be able to hold together. It can be able to stick, but it's a very, very light hold. Not as much as it would be with our cement, okay? So I got my primer onto my joint. I'm gonna keep that alongside while I go about. I'm not gonna need a whole lot of PVC cement when it comes to applying it to the inside of my coupler here. Okay, so now I got my primer and my cement on the inside of my coupler here. I'll go ahead and I'll start applying my primer over to PVC piping. From there, applying my cement. Notice I'm going all the way around this piping here. From there, I'm taking my piping and I'm just going to wrap around. And I'm twisting at the same time. This allows me to get full coverage of pipe to my coupler. Okay? So it's a matter of primer, cement. When I go about putting together my pipe to coupler, I'm twisting at the same time. Very easy application. Now when this is all said and done, between my PVC demonstration, my copper demonstration, my steel demonstration, just for kicks and giggles, I'll go about a little small project. How am I going to be using all three of these methods all together, a small little project? Got a little sprinkler system I'd like to demonstrate for you in later videos. But that concludes my demonstration of putting together synthetic piping with PVC.